We've all been there, haven't we? We're scrolling through Instagram looking at the feed and something catches our eye. A photograph that we want to zoom in on and see a little bit more detail of what's happening. It's just how we consume media these days. But I wonder, have you ever had this experience? I wonder, have you been flicking through a traditional magazine, randomly going from page to page, and you turn over and there's a photograph that catches your eye and you think, oh, I'd like to look at that in a little bit more detail. And I wonder, before you realise it, have you found your fingers reaching out to the magazine page, your fingers spreading out to zoom in, only to remember it's a paper magazine and it doesn't quite work that way. And of course, whenever it comes to maps these days, we're very used to the same kind of experience. We're in control of location, we're in control of scale, we're in control of all the things that you can put onto a map. And we're used to consuming maps in exactly the same way. And yet, the reality of what we give our students in classrooms very often is a static paper map. Now, this is not to knock Ordnance Survey maps. They are incredible things of amazing beauty. Students do need to know them and be able to find a way around them. But I can't help but feel, in a world of GIS, when I look at a map like this, it's great. It piques my interest. There are things that capture my attention and I want to pinch, to zoom, to see more, and I can't. Because this is how I'm used to using and consuming maps these days. This is the Philippines. This is some information about Typhoon Haiyan, and I am used to being able to go and find out information about the storm damage and the storm surge that's put on. I'm used to being able to check the legend and the key here, but then I'm used to being able to move around, that I can see here that the storm track is running here and that the storm surge tends to be higher around the storm track at the centre of the storm, but not up here. What's happening up here? Now, what can I do? Well, I can zoom in. And I can click on this and find out information about the tide, and I can go in here and speculate as to why that might be so high. I can look at the topography of this tiny little bay here and imagine that the waves, as they came in, were funneled in, and when they were funneled in, they were made to go higher. And I can do that because I'm in control of the map. And this is what the digital map allows us to do. It empowers us not only to map things better and quicker and faster, but it gets us to that really powerful geography faster, quicker and better, and allows the map visualizations to do what they're meant to do: prompt geographical thinking. But this very often is the reality of what we end up doing with our students for our examination system. When we want them to draw maps, this is what the exam paper looks like. We give them a set of data, we give them a blank map, and we ask them in the exam to get their pencils out and to start to fill that in. Now, it's not to say it's an unimportant skill, because when you look at the mark scheme and the things that they're asked to look at, the intensity of shading or overlap or gaps between class intervals, so the process of sitting down and working out your class intervals and looking at your range of data, determining how many different groups you're going to have and what those intervals will be and how that best represents the spread of data, those are important skills. But to do those all on a piece of paper before you even get anywhere near the map, and to be ultimately committed to that as you go through and start to draw the map and discover that's maybe not the best way of doing it. It just seems to me to be a very old-fashioned way of exploring these skills, because using digital versions of them allows you to get into making those decisions and tweaking them as you are drawing the map, looking at the map and what you're producing, thinking, that's not quite right. What if I tweak this a little bit? So that the focus doesn't just become on the technique, but the focus then moves on to the data visualization and how well and how powerfully you can communicate what the data is showing to the person who's looking at the map. Is there a better way of doing this? Can we get beyond the mechanics of hand drawing maps to that really powerful geography really quickly? Well, the answer is yes, through something no more dramatic than Excel. So what I've got here is a data set of all 192 countries in the world, and I've selected here the column on HDI. Now I want to draw a choropleth map on this. Now imagine for a moment if I had to do this by hand. That is a massive data set, 198 actually countries down there, that I'm going to have to look at the range, we're going to look at the class intervals, all of those things. That's going to be an incredibly time consuming way to do that by hand. Now how do we do this quickly using Excel? Very, very simple. You go to Insert, across here to Maps, Filled Map, and there it is. Yeah, we have literally just drawn a choropleth map that fast. Now, beyond that, what we can now do is to manipulate this in real time. There's the pattern. And we can be getting the students to look at the pattern, but we can also be getting them to consider the effectiveness of that as a data visualization tool. The default here is for this just all to be one colour, and you can of course hover over any country and find out what the actual value is. But is that the best way of doing that visualization? Well, if I double click on that, it brings me up this menu option here, and I can look at the colour. Now I can see here that the lowest value is a light blue, the highest value is a dark blue. So let's just start off something really simple and change the lower values to a contrasting colour and the higher values. Immediately that very much changes the data visualization. But you don't even have to stop there, because you can change this to a 3 colour scheme, and you can be in charge of the colours that you choose for that. Now again, you can ask, is this a better way of visualising it? Doesn't it make the patterns come out a little bit better? Or maybe we should change this and use a slightly different colour scheme. What if I bring greens in for that? I'll choose that green so it's not quite so in your face. We can experiment with these. And what if I change this one to a colour in the middle? How does that change the visualization? Does that make the reds of Sub-Saharan Africa stand out more? Is this a better way of presenting the data? Or is this worse? So 0.377, 0.759 up here in Algeria. Is that a better contrast? Does it reveal it better? You can be manipulating and tweaking this in real time to decide what is your best data visualization tool that you can use for that. Now beyond that, this just defaults to the lowest value, middle value, highest value. You can change this. What if I choose a number, and what if I look at the range of data and think to myself, no, the middle value isn't the best one. Maybe the data set is skewed up towards the top a little bit more. What if I were to set this as 0.75? What if I would make that change and click OK? And there you go. You see how the data set changes. You can see how those things are you can do those in real time and see how those little tweaks change how the data set presents itself. Now that to me is a fascinating conversation to have with your pupils. Get them to experiment with that, try different visualizations, share them with each other, get them to justify their visualization choices. Why did you do that? Why do you think that's better geography? Compare and contrast with other people, and all of a sudden you have an incredibly powerful conversation about data visualization rather than the laborious mechanics of figuring this all out for 192 countries. Now, perhaps they do still need the skills of hand-drawn cartography. Perhaps you will still want to do a little bit with that, or of that with them, on small data sets. But surely, in a world where this exists and is literally just the click of a few mouse buttons to bring us into this level of conversation, surely this is what digital mapping looks like in digital geography for our students these days. Think of the powerful geography that's unleashed through a tool like this.